Bro, the homeless are doing it. They're more inclined to use fire to get their anger out.
And this theory that some homeless guy without a car went from Altadena all the way to the Pacific Palisades, and then we have a hang glider.
Comedian Bill Burr has his finger on the pulse in a way that many comedians simply do not. So I'm going to get to a couple of clips here from his interview with Jimmy Kimmel last night, as well as some quotes from his interview with Variety that touch on many topics, including the wildfires as well, but also Gaza, CEOs, and his thoughts on comedians complaining about not being able to say things. And we'll get to some comments that he makes about the wildfires that appeared to, I'm not sure if he was aware of Joe Rogan's comments, but they are clearly completely in contrast to what Joe Rogan is saying, which, again, Rogan is completely out of touch. Bill Burr, one of the few that actually, I should say, one of the few in that sort of status that know what is actually going on. So let me first get to the first clip with Jimmy Kimmel.
I heard you had to evacuate your home.
Yes. Like most people, I had to. I got lucky, the winds moved, but, the fire was coming and all that stuff. So I feel lucky.
Are you guys back in?
And I think everybody did a great job.
Yeah.
Unlike the internet,
Yeah, right. I know. It's right.
Oh, my God. All of these fire experts. Why didn't you just fly a helicopter into the ocean and then just... I don't know, because there was 100-knot winds. You want to do that? You want to do that at night, you lunatic?
How are you?
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in L.A. sitting there in his underwear. You know what? Looking at the footage on the internet, I have determined that this here was mismanaged.
All right, this gets to a topic that I have wanted to discuss concerning these wildfires. And that is how some people that have a platform, how they've been using their platform to largely focus on the local politicians in California, as if they're the problem and not the fact that a massive climate disaster hit the state. So Bill Burr goes deeper on this topic in his interview with Variety. I'll link to this below the video as well. But he has a new special coming out, which is why he's doing all these interviews now. But he goes on to say he's disgusted by the fact that the natural disasters, some of the worst in California's history, have already become politicized online. Quote, what kills me is a lot of it is just bots. I think it's treasonous behavior to politicize everything, keeping regular working people at each other's throats. That is only good for one group of people, and it's not working people. So that, I think, is speaking to how some of the complaints, particularly from the right, have been focused on, the firefighters and DEI, and oh my God, the fire department's led by a lesbian woman, as if the firefighters are the focus of your ire from a fire that is happening. Like, it's so stupid. These are the people, these are the first responders. These are the ones actually trying to save lives, and some have been blaming them for these disasters. But he goes on to say, if I'm going to make fun of CNN, I've got to make fun of Fox. I make fun of the whole thing because I don't feel that politicians work for us. They work for the super rich, and they're grossly underpaid, so they're open to bribery. It gives regular people something to get mad at. Like with these fires, people are blaming Governor Newsom. It doesn't make a difference. That was going to happen no matter who was governor. Which also goes to the fact that many of these wildfires have hit people that are more well off. If let's say Governor Newsom only worked for the rich, and you could argue in many ways he does, but let's say that's his focus. Why wouldn't he do what he could to stop the fires if he could do that? Clearly, there's a greater issue here, and that is the climate crisis that has exacerbated these sorts of disasters. So, as Vox writes here, firefighters are working desperately to corral the flames and keep them away from people's homes, but there's little they can do to halt the combination of ample fuel, dry weather, and high winds. And that speaks to just the historically low rainfall in LA this winter. So if you remember about a year ago, there was record high rainfall. There were floods in and around LA. This year, there hasn't been rain in LA since May. And that has led to incredibly dry conditions. And look where they're sitting at here in terms of, the low rainfall. 2.2% compared to, where the average is or where the record high is. Just this has led to conditions on the ground that are insane. And as The Guardian writes, these fires are an especially acute example of something climate scientists have been warning about for decades, compound climate disasters that, when they occur simultaneously, produce much more damage than they would individually. If your focus in response to these fires are on local politicians as opposed to the greater issue of the climate crisis, then you're missing the point. It's like getting angry at the waiter for the restaurant closing down. Maybe aim a little higher. The issue aren't the politicians on the ground in this situation. You could, argue the response could be a little better. You could argue about funding and where more funding should be. But the mass of the disaster would have happened regardless because of the conditions on the ground and because of the conditions of the climate crisis that created those conditions. So let me get to the next clip.
No, man, these guys were out there clearing the trees, getting the wires back up and everything. It was like the perfect awful thing that could have happened, and it did. And I love how all the chatter out there is about bands of illegal immigrants and homeless people lighting fires. They light fires every day. They're living outside. They're cold. And this theory that some homeless guy without a car went from Altadena all the way to the Pacific Palisades, and that we have a hang glider. And they're talking about looting. But CNN and Fox News are not going to bring up the insurance companies that are just going to keep everybody's premiums and still give themselves a bonus. Yeah. Yes. Free Luigi. I love how they acted surprised. Why did that happen? I have no idea. He wrote on the bullets why it happened.
Oh, we're back to Luigi. Okay, yeah.
I never left Luigi.
All right, I got to get to his comments there on Luigi and the CEOs with another quote that he has in the Variety interview, as well as I'll get to his comments on Gaza. But first, I want to touch on these comments that he made about both the homeless apparently starting the fires and the looting as well, because these are two topics that were just recently touched on in an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, which many are now calling the Joe Rogan Billionaire Bootlicking Experience, as this is apparently where billionaires now go to recycle their image. But God, Rogan has completely lost his way. This used to be a podcast that was enjoyable, 5-10 years ago, but it's completely just useless now. But let me get to some of these comments, because this is amazing. As the Tennessee Holler writes here, Rogan mocks the idea that climate change is a factor, blames the fires on homeless people, says LA lets looters go.
This is a whiny liberal. It's fucking climate change. Wake up. No, it's arson, you fucking idiots.
I think it's Mr. Beast. He's setting up a new video.
Wow. That's a strong accusation.
Bold.
No, just kidding.
No,
But they've been trying to get rid of the homeless for a while.
Bro, the homeless are doing it.
Well, they're flammable.
Everyone is. But they're more inclined to use fire to get their anger out.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah,
Freebase.
Huberman actually caught people lighting things on fire. He filmed it. He put it up on his Instagram.
Really?
Yeah. In the middle of the firestorm, people were lighting things on fire to contribute to the fire.
Wow.
You've got losers.
Whoa.
You have 100,000 losers that are just camping on your street. What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen when the people with the houses are in jeopardy? What do you think is going to happen when these people that are living in $50 million houses and you're camping out a block away, which is exactly what's going on over there?
And the looting.
And the looting. Well, they looted people's houses when they found out that places were getting evacuated. Swarms of organized gangs were showing up. This lady said 100 guys showed up in front of this house, and she thought they were helping her neighbor move. They just broke down the door and started stealing TVs, stealing everything.
Whoa.
This man is just deep-throating right-wing talking points and regurgitating it for the rest of us. It is so amazing to watch. Now, yes, of course, arson likely was one of the factors in sparking it, but arson exists all over the world. Very rarely does it lead to an entire state catching fire. Clearly, there are other factors at play here when it comes to just how dry the LA area has been. So, as Forbes writes here, what sparked the California wildfires? Experts consider power lines, fireworks, and arson. So many things could have sparked it, but what leads to it continuing as long as it has? High winds, the incredibly dry conditions on the ground, obviously are factors here. And the reason that those are things is because of the conditions of the climate. It's just, this is a guy that what is it, back in 2018, was clowning Candace Owens for not believing in climate change. And now here he is in 2025 being the clown, being the absolute dipshit and making fun of people who discuss climate change. It's been so sad to watch. Now, let me get to Bill Burr's comments on CEOs here. So in Variety, he says the funny thing when the CEO got whacked was watching CEOs have to be uncomfortable. I'm sure they didn't learn anything, but it's like, this is how you make everybody feel day to day as you apply pressure. Because, quote, that's how business is done. How you leave this burning wreckage of destroyed lives as you restructure or consolidate. It was fun for them to worry. And I've discussed other comments that he made on the CEO in the past as well. He has been one of the few voices in this sort of, celebrity status willing to say this sort of thing. He also goes on, I was going to watch his special anyways, but I really want to see it day one, considering it apparently one of the first topics he gets into is Israel and Palestine. So he says, I'm just saying we need to come up with a way to solve our differences without dropping bombs on children. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. So, he claims it's apolitical. Bill Burr tries to hit both sides. He tries to, you could argue, be apolitical, but everything is political. That's the reality of the world. So it's good to see that, he's against dropping bombs on children. I know it's sort of a low bar here, but it's a bar that not many people with the kind of platform he has been willing to even discuss. And this is on the idea, comedians like Joe Rogan complaining about, oh, you can't say anything anymore. People are acting like what you can say now in America, you could say 50 or 60 years ago. When I was born, that was right after Lenny Bruce was arrested for obscenity in San Francisco and George Carlin repeatedly for his 7 dirty words routine. People were really nervous that you couldn't say certain things. That doesn't exist anymore. I guess it exists online in a phony way. This goes, again, to how Bill Burr is so much more in tune with culture and society than the vast majority of comedians in his space, or at least comedians that have his level of popularity. I love to see it. It's been wonderful to watch Bill Burr touch on these issues in a way that very few people are willing to do, and speak truth in a way that I think is able to get in the heads of more people across political spectrums in a way that many comedians simply are not able, and that many people generally simply are not able to do.